The waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender air freshener. For most people, it was just another clinic. For Aisha, it felt like the most terrifying place on earth. She sat on the edge of her chair, fingers twisting the strap of her worn handbag, eyes fixed on the floor tiles. Every few seconds, she glanced at the closed door across the room, the one with the small brass plate that read Drive. Zayn Malik, gynecologist. Aisha had never been good with doctors. Or people. Or attention of any kind. At 24, she was painfully shy, the kind of girl who lowered her gaze when spoken to, whose voice trembled even when ordering tea. She came from a conservative, middle-class family where such visits were whispered about, where embarrassment often outweighed health concerns. But today, fear had finally lost to necessity. For weeks, she had been feeling unwell, constant fatigue, dizziness, irregular pain she didn't know how to explain. Her mother, worried but gentle, had insisted. After days of hesitation, Aisha had agreed, on one condition. Just book the earliest appointment, she'd whispered. I don't want to see many people. Now here she was. Miss Aisha Khan. Her heart jumped. A nurse stood at the doorway, smiling kindly. Aisha nodded quickly and stood up, almost tripping over her own feet as she followed her inside. The consultation room was quiet, modern, and surprisingly warm. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains. Medical charts lined the walls. A desk sat near the window. And behind that desk stood the doctor. Aisha froze. He couldn't be more than 30. Tall, well-dressed in a crisp white coat, with sharp features softened by calm eyes. His hair was neatly styled, his posture confident but not arrogant. He looked less like the doctors she had imagined, and more like someone from a business magazine cover. He smiled professionally. Please, have a seat. Her face burned as she sat down, barely lifting her eyes. I'm Drive. Zayn Malik, he said gently. You don't need to be nervous. Everything we discuss here is confidential. His voice was calm, reassuring, yet it only made her more aware of herself. She nodded, hands clenched in her lap. So, he continued, taking a seat across from her, what brings you in today? The words stuck in her throat. She tried to speak. Failed. Tried again. I've been feeling, her voice cracked. He noticed immediately. It's okay, he said softly. Take your time. There's no rush. Something about the way he said it, no judgment, no impatience, made her breathe a little easier. She explained, haltingly at first, then slowly more clearly. The symptoms, the discomfort, the fear she had carried alone for weeks. He listened without interrupting, his expression focused and respectful, never once making her feel small. After a moment, he nodded. Thank you for trusting me with that. We'll run a few routine checks, nothing to worry about. Routine. The word didn't calm her at all. As the examination began, Aisha's anxiety returned full force. Her hands trembled. Her breathing became shallow. Doctor. Zayn noticed. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, he said quietly, tell me and we'll stop. Your comfort matters. No doctor had ever said that to her before. She nodded, eyes squeezed shut. The examination was brief, professional, and far less frightening than she'd imagined. When it was over, she felt exhausted, but oddly relieved. She sat back down as he reviewed the results. Physically, there's nothing alarming, he said. But I am concerned about your stress levels. Have you been under a lot of pressure lately? Aisha hesitated, then shook her head. He studied her gently. Sometimes our bodies speak when we don't. The words hit her harder than she expected. Something inside her cracked. I lost my father 2 years ago, she said quietly. Since then, everything feels heavy. I help my mother. I work part-time. I don't complain. I just keep going. Her eyes filled with tears she had swallowed for too long. Doctor. Zayn didn't rush to speak. I'm sorry, he said sincerely. That's a lot to carry alone. She wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You don't need to apologize, he interrupted gently. Strength doesn't mean silence. There was a pause. Then, almost shyly, she asked, Doctor, may I ask you something? Of course. How did you become so calm? She asked. You seem like you've never struggled. For the first time, something changed in his expression. He leaned back slightly, folding his hands. People assume that, he said quietly. Because they read headlines. She looked up, confused. Headlines. He hesitated, then smiled faintly. Yes, I suppose you should know. He turned his computer screen slightly toward her. On it was an article. Youngest self-made millionaire doctor in the country expands private healthcare network. Her breath caught. You're a millionaire, she whispered. He nodded, a bit embarrassed. I invested early. Opened clinics in underserved areas. It grew faster than I expected. Aisha stared at him, stunned. He noticed her reaction and quickly added, but in this room, that doesn't matter. I'm just your doctor. Her heart raced, not with attraction, but with disbelief. A man this successful, sitting here, speaking to her with patience and respect. I didn't grow up like this, he continued. My mother was a nurse. We struggled. I worked nights during medical school. I know what it feels like to feel invisible. The words wrapped around her like warmth. For the first time, she felt seen. Their conversation drifted into lighter topics, her work, her love for books, his passion for building clinics in rural areas. Time passed without her noticing. When the appointment ended, she stood up, calmer than she'd been in months. Thank you, she said softly. For everything. He smiled. Take care of yourself, Aisha. And remember, your health matters. So do you. She nodded and left the room, her heart strangely lighter. Over the next few weeks, she followed his advice: rest, counseling, proper nutrition. Slowly, the symptoms eased. But something else lingered. The memory of his kindness. One afternoon, she returned for a follow-up appointment. This time, she wasn't shaking. You seem better, he observed. I feel better, she said, then paused. Doctor, may I say something honestly? He looked at her. Always. I was terrified the first day, she admitted. But you made me feel safe. He held her gaze, respectful as ever. That means more to me than you know. There was a silence, not awkward, but thoughtful. Would it be inappropriate, she asked carefully, if I asked you something, not medical? He considered her words carefully. As long as you're comfortable. She took a deep breath. Would you like to have coffee sometime? Her heart pounded as soon as the words left her mouth. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he smiled, not as a doctor, but as a man. I'd like that, he said. After your treatment is complete. Relief flooded her face. Months later, Aisha often thought back to that first day, the fear, the trembling hands, the quiet girl who walked into a clinic expecting judgment and walked out with courage. She had learned something important. Sometimes, the places we fear the most, become the places where our lives change forever. And sometimes, the people we least expect, see us exactly as we are.